Usually people talk about ideas that build on what exists. What I would like to talk about is ideas that kind of subvert some of what exists. And one of those ideas is the building of solidarity-based organizations in a marketized world, in a thoroughly corporatized world that we live in, something that is very much of an uphill battle, and something that I think we need in order to go past the impasse that I think we are in today, not just as a society here in the United States, but as a human society. First thing I want to share with you is that this is not about everything. It's not about every single relationship and every single project. It's about a whole lot of projects. Everything I'll be talking about today is the function of the work and labor and creativity of so many people beyond me. I'm just the messenger, so please take that into account as we go through today's talk. Why bother? Well, very simply, we live in a world where prices for everything are set by impersonal structures that we cannot control. We call them markets, and we worship them, whether we know it or not. Second, this would have been okay if the market value of things, or the price of things, matched their real value or their use value, but it does not. Finally, this market value is now setting prices for things beyond market and for things that have to do with human relations and causes, directly or indirectly. And that cannot be good, given 1 and 2. So what does this mean? If you think about it for a second, what does this mean? Personally, I have no idea. But I have a story to tell that can probably come up with, help us come up with some insights. In 1992, I was a graduate student at Georgetown University. And I had just graduated from George Mason University, this place where I'm now teaching. And I also teach here at the Department of Public and International Affairs, which I want to give a shout out to my department and my university. I was a young student at Georgetown, and I wanted to start a student-run scholarly journal, which I intended for it to be a peer-reviewed journal one day, not just a student journal that falls after a couple of years or so. I proposed the idea to the administrator at Georgetown, the person in charge, and he patted me on the back after talking to him for a while, and he said, "Good luck." He basically said that we don't have the resources, and it's simply a matter of supply and demand. He was using resources in a particular manner, in a particular way, in the market sense. Resources meant funding and money and things that are material. This is when my colleagues and I decided we have to go out of the confines of the market, that if you use the market language, you must think within the framework of the market, within the framework of market tools and criteria. And you will be subordinated to market values and rules, which might work for some areas, some people at some point, but not for all things. Solidarity is based on the power of the message, to make a very long story short. And this is what we set out to do. After 20 years, which is almost today, not only did the journal get published as a result of our work, our collaborative work over the years, but it survived, and it became a respectable peer-reviewed journal in the field of Middle East studies within 8 short years. This is the Arab Studies Journal today. This is the issue that just came out last month. It marks the 20th year of publication for the journal. Our work revolved around a very simple message of producing critical and high-quality analysis on the region with absolutely no taboos, with a lot of emphasis on social justice, the ordinary human being, and people and communities as opposed to frameworks. It was collaborative and non-hierarchical. This is a very key ingredient that actually allowed us to survive for so long without a lot of material support. We created an umbrella institution that ran the journal, and we called it the Arab Studies Institute. That's back in the 1990s. And that was only the beginning. Of course, over the next several years, we built 3 organizations on the same principle. The Arab Studies Institute today comprises 4 major organizations that work on the basis of solidarity, non-corporate mode of production and creativity. We have the peer-reviewed Arab Studies Journal. We have an electronic magazine called Jadaliya. We have a film and documentary collective called Quilting Point, and we have a research institute called FAMA, Forum on Arab and Muslim Affairs. Very quickly, our team today across all organizations has grown to more than 60 creative and dedicated members. From a market perspective, the work that we've been doing for 20 years is completely irrational. It just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't have survived, we wouldn't have done anything if we based our plan or business plan, quote unquote, on what the market requires. But all of us don't mind being faceless, and this is not a joke. Check this out. This is half of the pictures we take are faceless, where our backs are turned to the camera. The first of these organizations, after the Arab Studies Journal, was a film collective. We wanted to go into the realm of film. We produce something with an image that moves, a video. Actually, we realized that millions and millions and millions of people were watching our product compared to the few hundred, and maybe, if you're lucky, a couple of thousand people who read your article. This film collective that we built in 2003, and it included 15 amazing individuals that produced 3 critically acclaimed research-based political documentaries that won awards and were globally distributed. First, we produced a film in 2003 called About Baghdad. We were the first team in the world to enter Baghdad and film a documentary on the viewpoints of Iraqis themselves, not CNN, not Al Jazeera, not any other news outlet. It actually was shown in 4 continents, or 5 continents actually, all of the continents, and it was accessible to more than 80 or 90 million people around the world, compared to some of the stuff we publish, and that kind of encouraged us to keep going. It won the Best Documentary at the Big Apple Film Festival in New York, and many others around the world. And then we produced a film called Arabs and Terrorism in 2005, which is a film that challenges the dominant discourse in the United States about the relationship between terrorism and the Arab world, or Arabs and Muslims. It was shot in 11 countries with 125 high-profile interviewees and in 6 languages. The third was called The Other Threat, Arab and Muslim Immigrants in Europe, and it focused on the plight of immigration at a time of the beginnings of global economic decline, and actually was very well received in Europe. It was produced in coordination with some agencies within the European Union. This third institution that we created as a result of this collective that we call the Arab Studies Institute is Jadaliyya. Jadaliyya is an e-magazine, an e-zine, that we launched in 2010. It quickly became the go-to place for academics, researchers, and observers of the Middle East alike. It is not a new website or a new site. It is a new kind of medium for the production of knowledge that fills the temporal and quality gap between everyday blogs and one-person blogs, in other words, and quarterly peer-reviewed articles in usually peer-reviewed journals. In less than 16 months, Jadaliyya, which means dialectic in English, reached 1.8 million readers, not counting for forwarded pieces and other means by which it is read. At this point, we receive about 70,000 to 80,000 visitors a week. It is read in 210 countries, and the numbers are rising steadily. Jadaliyya is read mostly in Egypt, the UK, and the United States. FAMA is the 4th and final addition to our Arab Studies Institute collective, and it is a research and publications arm of the Arab Studies Institute. It was established gradually and slowly since 2007, and by the end of this summer, we would have co-sponsored 3 major academic conferences in 3 continents. It would have also published 3 books and embarked on a monumental endeavor we call the Knowledge Production Project. The first co-sponsored conference by FAMA was actually conducted here at George Mason University. It's called Teaching the Middle East After the Arab Uprisings, with 40 participants, the product of which will include a journal-themed issue and a book, and perhaps a documentary. The second is called Contesting Narratives, Locating Power, regarding the Arab Uprisings as well, which took place at Lund University in Sweden, and is also going to produce publications. A third joint project is with the American University of Beirut, roundtable on the Arab uprisings happening later this May. As far as books by our research arm, FAMA, we have a new book coming out. It's called The Dawn of the Arab Uprisings, which is coming out from Pluto Press this summer. And we have another that's coming out this summer that we are publishing called Covering the Arab Uprisings, on how the Arab uprisings were covered in the media, which is a whole different issue altogether besides what happened on the ground, the manner in which it was represented and produced for everyone to see and read. And finally, we have a booklet on the Egyptian elections, the historic elections that took place last November, which are still determining the fate of Egypt today. Now, our biggest project to date is the Knowledge Production Project, but we will not be talking about this because it will take up a lot of time, but people will hear about it because it's the only project of its kind that brings together all knowledge produced on the Middle East since 1979 in 6 databases that are open source. Now, this is finally the Arab Studies Institute. Between 1992 and today, we were working on an all-volunteer basis. The first penny of funding came only in recent months. We could no longer afford the overhead, so we actually started applying for some funding, but we haven't really reaped the rewards of this so far, but we will. I'm not just presenting this because I'm happy with what we've done. I'm also presenting this for the real and substantive purpose of working together if people are interested here or anywhere anyone's watching. So the whole idea, or the main idea, around which building solidarity organizations is based, is to replace market-based values with solidarity-based values. We have to replace market value by use value. So the market value of something is based on supply and demand, and supply and demand is not just based on supply and demand. The demand for something is not based on your desire for it. It's based on your desire for it, sure, but factored into your desire for something is everything that you should replace individual labor by collaborative labor, which is far more rewarding at any level and in any way that you can think of. Third, motivation. We should replace shining, the idea that I want to shine, by building, the idea that we want to build. Look, you can shine if you build, but it shouldn't be your motivator. Knowledge. We should replace the most popular, or wanting to get to the most popular, by the most critical. Goal. We should replace influencing policy, which is what many organizations do, by setting new standards, raising standards and raising awareness, as we'll see in a second. Competition, and this is really crucial, because my wife said this is a cool point. We need to replace competing with others, because competing with others always means that the number of players involved is already there. It's based on what exists. So we need to replace competing with others with, or by, setting new reference points that have nothing to do with the actual game. You can set new reference points elsewhere and work for them, and you don't need to compete. In effect, you might be competing, you might not be, it doesn't matter. But setting new reference points can be the most eloquent and I guess noble goal one can have. Relations. Replace hierarchy by reciprocity. We recruit interns, we call them researchers, we don't call them interns. And the idea is that with every researcher, we have to actually give something back, either by helping them publish, helping them develop new skills, and so on and so forth. Success. Replace increasing dollar amount by increasing awareness. The idea that you need to increase dollar amount in order to be successful, come on. I mean, I understand the material question, but for us, in the work that we're doing, which involves intellectual production and creativity, we need to actually replace success, or replace the meaning of success from something that is called increasing money or income to increasing awareness. Recognition. Replace stardom by collaborative effects. The idea that I want to be a star, I mean, can be cool, but guess what? With collaborative effects, you can be a star, but based on something much more substantive and much more valuable. Timing. Replace short-term horizons by, guess what, long-term horizons. These all sound like, you know, my 7-year-old nephew Jude can come up with these things, but in practice, it's a whole different way of thinking. So this is not rocket science. I don't know if we can say this after all these things are blowing up, but it's not rocket science, but it's something that is extremely difficult to actually act out in practice. So a lot of this is going to sound a little bit superficial, but in practice is where you actually do it. Just like losing weight, you know, I know what to do, but I just can't do it. Form. replace the substitutable by the unsubstitutable, right? People hire people and do things, work on projects, they can always substitute them. The moment you realize that you can substitute the person you hire, even to do, basic things, this means you don't have a real relationship with them. Hire or recruit or work with people that are unsubstitutable. Value. Replace material gains by solidarity gains. Material gains can come and go. Solidarity gains never disappear, and they're infinitely more rewarding. Replace superficial selfishness by what I call deep selfishness, which means me now versus me now and later. Gratify yourself. Nobody's saying don't gratify yourself, but gratify yourself in the long term, in a deep way, now and later, not just what you need now. Or this kind of solidarity work might actually ruin your life, because you will not have a second to spend with your wife. The kind of work required to do all of this and to build real relations with people is probably a lot more than what the market requires. So we're not advocating laziness, we're actually advocating real work that builds real relationships that might one day, in the aggregate, if more and more people start thinking outside the market, we just might be able to begin to build another better world outside the market. Our email is info@arabstudiesinstitute.org. Thank you.